I will call us to order. This is the Public Integrity Task Force, and we're here on February the 4th at 3 o'clock. And I'm Bill Harbison. I'm the chair of the task force. Let's go around, Alex, and just introduce ourselves for the record.
Alex Cool, NAACP Economic Development Committee.
Ron Snicker, I work at Waller and also the president of the LGBT Chamber here in Nashville.
Bill Koch, and I'm the dean of the Nashville School of Law.
I'm Martha Boyd. I'm an attorney at Baker Donaldson.
And we might as well get our guests to say, I know.
Parker Toller, Metropolitan Trustee.
Nikki Akin, Metro Legal.
Thank you, Nikki.
Mark Orlock, General Counsel, Nashville General Hospital.
And
Audra Ladd, I work for the Mayor's Office, Economic Development, Marion Falls, Mayor's Office.
thank you all. Audra has handed out, and I think everybody now on the committee has a copy of preliminary results of our survey that we sent to departments. And Audra, to put you on the spot, if you could give us a quick update, since we just got this hot off the press, of what we've got back and what you've handed out.
So the packet that you have in front of you is the initial summary of the responses that we've received to date. There's 36 responses to date. We ran into a little difficulty with the Google firewall, so we will have additional surveys coming through over the next week. So this will not be the final count, but this is at least the initial first pass. I think you'll find it really interesting. We tried to summarize a lot in pie graphs, but did include narratives where they were available for descriptions of what things, when they wanted to share policies and procedures. If you, on the first page, just looking at the conflict of interest, ethical standards policies, has your government entity adopted or written a conflict of interest policy? Yes was 55%, no was close to 40%. There was a bit of confusion here, though. I do want to state, I had a few department heads call me because they said, well, I said no because we follow the 2.222. So I am trying to, we might need to recalibrate that result, but it was, still telling that a certain number say no. And then this, on the next page, question 3, to whom does your conflict of interest policy apply to? You can see that the majority of them were both, but some were only employees. I think what I'd like to encourage you to do is just to read through some of this at your own pace and go ahead and send questions either up to me or the chairperson, and I will be able to pull additional questions together. I also still owe you all a compilation of the policies that folks did send to me. So I'm going through them, they're in my inbox. Right. I want to make sure that I correlate them according to department, and so that you're, or board or commission, so we can somehow analyze what those policies are, if and what they look like. I actually found a couple of things interesting on the whistleblower policy. So that would be question 12. Has your governmental entity adopted a written whistleblower policy? No was 77.8. So I think there's some education around that, because our whistleblower policy, as we've discussed previously, is more broadly applied.
Yes. But awareness of the whistleblower policy may not be
correct.
All that great. Yeah.
Right. I think, and then the question 16 reinforces, Chairman, what you just mentioned, which is, does your governmental entity provide training in your whistleblower policy? 75% said no training is provided. So I had an initial conversation with our director of HR, just exploring options for what else we might be able to do through our standard trainings to fold in more ethical trainings and more processes and procedures around whistleblower in particular. And she's open to it.
That's
so
great.
If this body so recommends that be something to proceed, be happy to do that.
That's great.
I think you'll be interested, you're all attorneys, but whether there was awareness of section 2.24300, which is question 23, there was a significant awareness. And that was the reporting of suspected illegal, improper, wasteful, or fraudulent activities. That was a great sign that over 80% actually was familiar with that section. Again, no training is provided, so there's awareness but no training, so we don't really know.
It's developing a theme, isn't it?
Yes.
Hi.
Yes.
They know
And
about the policies, but know nothing about it.
yeah, and really I think of political activity section, which is question 29. There was a lot of I don't knows in this section, so we'll have to think about what might be helpful for education around what that policy is. And there was 66% had no adoption of a written policy regarding political activities. And then the complaint section, which is question 36 at the end, there were not very many complaints received. Again, that may have to do more with the lack of knowledge about the process for reporting complaints. So all in all, it's an initial scan. I don't think there was any huge surprises. I think
Right.
it's pretty much what
Right.
we thought. But over the next week, I'll compile additional responses as well as any other individual policies and procedures that were sent and collate those for you and email them.
Thank you so much, Audra. Do you, so you think that'll be over the next week or so, that we'll
Yes.
get the rest of the responses?
Yes.
And then the updated information? That's great. Thank you.
One thing I think we want to, and I mentioned this before, look at as a group is, would there be a difference in responses based on the two categories of department head versus commission and board? Because
We can pull 'em out.
That's
we might
helpful.
want to know,
If there's.
some are under the umbrella every day, right? And so
Right.
they're seeing this
Right.
and breathing it, we hope.
Right.
And commissions and boards are people in the community that
That's
may or may
right.
not be top of mind. And so we may have to affect each group separately.
That's really helpful. That seems
Maybe
right
I
to
can
me.
work on that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Any other questions for Audra as we?
This is really very helpful, the way you presented it.
It certainly
It's
is.
excellent. Should we make a copy of this an exhibit to this meeting?
That
So it's
sounds,
certainly available to anyone else who wants to.
and knowing that it's a preliminary result at this point.
Preliminary only,
Yeah,
yes.
it's preliminary at this point, but yes, we can certainly do, if there's, is everybody in agreement, we do that, make it
Well,
available.
let me ask you a question. We were expecting at least 47 responses, is that correct?
I think there was more than 47.
Okay,
I'll check.
I
I'll
guess
check.
what I'm trying to get at is that when you typically put out a report like that, you want to make sure you headline it with, results of 25% of the pool reporting or something like that, so that we can kind of clarify it.
To know that this is not the full
Right.
response, that makes sense to me.
Well, in the context of this meeting, it's made clear there were some technical issues that prevented that.
Slowed it
This is
down a
simply
little
the
bit.
first
First, thank you.
run.
Yeah, yeah.
I agree with that.
That all sounds good. Thank you. So Audra, thank you for that. Any other questions of her before we, thank you so much.
Was there any just anecdotal feedback from the survey? Were people upset we
Oh, good question.
we interrupted their day, or were they like, great, we're glad you're looking
I
at this?
did receive over half dozen phone calls saying, what is this? What is this? And I said, it's just an evaluation of where you are in the knowledge of your policies. So there was a little bit of anxiousness, I think, around what this was. And then, but other than that, it wasn't, that's the only piece of feedback, is they just wanted to be sure they understood
Was there
the
more behind it than what the email
Right.
said? Yeah.
Right, and so I just clarified that, look, we're just trying to create a baseline of what the knowledge is and what the policies are and how things are being followed, so.
That's great.
And then it's, we'll be reporting this sort of an aggregate,
That's great.
so.
Thank you for your work.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you so
Thank you for your
much. That's very helpful, very helpful. So I thought it might make sense, since we don't have an outside speaker today, we just we can just deliberate a little bit among ourselves and have a general discussion about where we are so far. It seems to me we could just review what information we've got at this point and that we've been able to pull together. We've fortunately had Nikki very helpful to give us a background on the legal sources of ethical requirements for metropolitan government, and we've had a review of that. That'll be something that we can take into account. We've had reports from internal audit. We've had a report from procurement last time, and now we have a survey preliminarily, and we'll have more complete data from the survey. One of the things we have to consider is what kind of report can we make, and how much can we say at this point. Just to sort of kick off a discussion, it seems to me that perhaps one of the themes we've identified is training and awareness, that's an important theme about what we've already got and raising awareness of what we've already got in terms of aspirations, goals, requirements. That's certainly, I think, a theme. Another theme that emerged to me, and I've just made a few notes, and I'll stop talking in a minute, but another theme that emerged to me was how decentralized metropolitan government is. We've heard that from multiple folks, that obviously we've got department heads, we have practices that may vary from department to department, and awarenesses that the survey seems to indicate may vary from department to department. And so trying to think about the government as a whole being as uniform as it can be, and as sort of consistent about lifting up these aspirations, that's a theme to me, to sort of achieve greater uniformity. And I was looking back at our initial sort of goal when we were being formed as a task force, and one of the important, really the last one, and maybe one that encompasses a lot of other thought, is review and assess the possibility of a new Office of Inspector General. And just to kick off a discussion, I thought it seemed to me that sort of encompasses a lot of this in one place. That is, maybe an independent body that can have general oversight of these requirements, and have that be done in a uniform way as much as possible, and have it be someone's job to help achieve that. And so I thought maybe it made sense to start with, do the members of the committee feel like that's still a meaningful goal, a meaningful recommendation we might want to make as part of our work?
My comment
Alex?
is that, Metro has a lot of documents and legal requirements
Yes.
that seem to be on the books.
Yeah.
My question has been is, who's really aware of what's on the books, how current are all the policies, right?
Yeah.
And whether or not training takes place on a current, frequent basis to ensure that there's a awareness across the board. I also think that the Office of Inspector General would be a requirement, because based on what the Office of Internal Audit indicated, is that they don't have bandwidth or the funding to do a thorough job on an ongoing basis. So really there's no threat. I believe in order for people to do right, there's a lot of good people that you don't have to supervise, but there are a lot of others that you do have to supervise. And there needs to be a threat of oversight and review to ensure that policies and practices that are supposed to ensure that Metro government functions correctly, above board, and on behalf of the citizens of Davidson County, that those department heads and individuals tasked with doing those jobs actually do the job that they are appointed to do. And so that's my comment. So I do think that
You support that notion
I
of...
support that notion.
It's helpful.
How
Martha?
different the functions of the IG would be from the audit function, and how we would make recommendations that ensure that audit still exists to do the specialized work audit does without stepping on the IG, or perhaps one falls under the other, I don't know.
Well, I think that's a relevant question, of course. You know, you've already got that. That exists in the government now, and it reports. It's under the finance department, if I understand correctly and recall what they presented. One difference about this recommendation might be that it would be some kind of, it would have greater independence. It wouldn't be, it would probably need to be, and Nikki, we may need your help on thinking about this, but it would need to be a new thing if we did it, recommended it, probably appointed by the mayor and then confirmed by the council, but it would not be under any existing department. So it wouldn't, in the way I think we've discussed it, it wouldn't be replacing internal audit, which is still necessary and which investigates and which has a different function really than just overall compliance. The previous mayor, I think, had started a little bit down the road of having an ethics person, and that was Patsy Cottrell, with whom I've spoken a little bit, you know, maybe on a part-time basis, I'm not sure, but trying to do some of this work within the government, but it wasn't a separately funded agency. It wasn't truly maybe as much as we're envisioning here. So in my mind, it wouldn't replace internal audit.
I mean, I wouldn't think it should. Of course,
No.
you might want the IG to have the benefit of using internal
Yes,
audit
that
for
would be
appropriate investigations.
That's a good idea, yeah. Bill, did you,
Well, no, I completely agree. To me, it's not either or. I've got 7 recommendations, and one of them is that we provide additional resources to the audit staff in addition to
yes,
creating an inspector general. And I think that you're right about the linkage. I think that's a mayoral appointment.
Seems to me
it might
that
be
would be-
administratively attached to audit in terms of budget and things like that, but
perhaps, but
the
it would have
reporting
independence.
relationship is it's
Yeah.
independent,
Yeah,
and you know they can work out the details on not duplicating staff functions. But again,
Yes.
we've already got audit having more on their plate that they can handle. So
Right.
there needs to be some infusion of additional support there
Additional resources to audit as well.
to audit and
Yeah, that's okay.
and to the
Yeah,
and I'm
that's
not
a
sure
good-
you create an inspector general with no staff. I think you've
No, you probably have to think about what it
you've
looks like.
got, and again, you don't need to start big, but you at least need some support staff and maybe one other professional in there to at
I would
least
think
start.
so. I would think so.
I would, to make it independent, even though it's mayor appointment, I mean, how would the person, you know, could the mayor then decide that the person is not wanted after 6 months?
Well,
How would we look at the transition, right?
The buck's always going to stop with the mayor.
Right.
I think it has to.
So if you, I mean, I'm not. We could get into this, but it seems to me it's a mayoral appointments confirmed by the council that it can either be for a set term of years, and that set term could coincide with the mayoral term or not. In some ways, I think it might be better to keep it out of sync.
I agree.
Do it like
agree.
a 6-year term. Where
But then, of course, you always have to have a provision there where subject to removal for cause if there's some.
Well,
something.
I mean, I think there's always legitimate reason for cause, but I'm worried about strong mayor politics, right?
You're trying to get it removed from.
Yeah, I mean, my issue.
Yeah.
You set it up kind of like the FBI director is set up, where it is not synchronized with the changing of the administration.
Right.
Right.
So you set it up in a way where, you know, that person is going to be appointed by one mayor but serve for another and eligible for reappointment.
Yeah, okay. But I would like, you know, I would like some stipulation that a vote of confidence from the council, okay?
Confirmed by the council.
But I'm talking about if there's a question or challenge from the mayor, is whether or not the person is performing their duties correctly, right? So it's like right now, the president of the United States can get rid of anybody when he wants to, right? But typically, he has to have a justification, and somebody needs to review that process. And what I'm asking for is that, can we not institute something similar to that, that, hey, you can appoint the person, but if there's gonna be grounds for dismissal, there needs to be legitimate reason, and it needs to be shared with the council.
Well, I don't mind sharing it with the council, but I think we're diluting the executive's authority if he or she wants to make a personnel decision but can't carry through with it unless the council agrees.
I think that could be hard to work, potentially.
I can see him having to, a mayor should explain, I'm discharging the inspector general for the following reasons.
Right.
And then, I mean, the public will, and the council will decide whether that's sufficient or not. And, the mayor will either pay the political price for it or the mayor won't.
Well, okay, okay. I mean,
Yeah,
that may work.
Yeah.
That may work.
Ron, have you got thoughts on this? Or?
Well, I mean, I'm not a big fan of let's just create more expense.
I understand that. I understand.
So I know we're all trying to be very mindful about this,
Yeah.
and I agree with you, Dean Koch, that you can't just bring in this person. They have to have staff and support and et cetera. So we're not talking about one person's salary. We're talking potentially about multiple people.
Yeah.
Or repurposing existing
Right.
employees here. But I'm on board with the concept of it.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued by this independent concept, and I like your logic that you had with the executive in that role. But then also, do you ever then fully remove the fear of retaliation from this independent inspector general if they're always going to be potentially at the whim of the executive to be let go? So is there any check and balance, and do we care? I'm just asking the question.
We ought to care.
Well, I mean, that was my point.
No, we ought to care, but there's always going to have to be appointing authority.
Yeah.
And if it's the mayor, then that's going to be the terminating authority. If you move it to the council, the council is going to be the authority. But since we're talking about executive branch functions that are going to be overseen, I think we got a separation of powers problem if the reporting relationship is directly to the council.
And I'm not proposing that, but I was
Yeah.
just wondering if there would be this, if you do want to let this person go, other than stating your reasons, would the council, would we want them to be the second check, if you will, to?
But see, that's what I say is that'd be like telling the governor that he can't terminate the Commissioner of General Services without the legislature's approval. And that's really getting the legislature in the executive branch's business.
Yeah.
The accountability for some of these things for mayors or governors acting in good faith is being required to state reasons for that and then be held accountable politically or otherwise.
Yeah. Well, we all know what is said publicly may or may not be the actual truth. You might have been out the weekend before and you had words with each other you didn't like, and now, Dean Koch, I want to let you go because I don't think that you work efficiently in your job.
Well, I'll give you a good example of how that works. Ray Blanton hired Marie Rajani to be the head of the parole board because he and Eddie Sis thought that she would jump whenever they told her to, and she ended up being more independent than they thought, so they decided they were going to fire her. They had to figure out a reason for firing her. They didn't want to fire her because she was not compliant enough. That would not have.
Right.
So they fired her because she was filing false travel claims. And so they fired her. It was all over the front page of the newspaper. She hires Fred Thompson, back then lawyer Fred Thompson, and they file a lawsuit saying that the grounds for termination were made up and wrong. I happen to be representing the governor, and I got my brains beat out because it was a completely fabricated reason. And so what ended up happening was, in addition to a jury giving her back pay, front pay, ordering that her job went back, it ended up being one of the scandals that eventually caused the governor's demise. So I think the chief executives have a way of paying the price when they don't
If they
act.
do it inappropriately.
If
yeah.
they do it inappropriately.
Fair enough.
But the challenge, and I hear your point, but the challenge is not everybody's gonna have the fortitude to challenge that. You know what I mean? I see too much going on in metro government now where the little dog has to try to fight the big dog, okay? And that's an uphill battle, okay? So 95% of the people are gonna fall out with no battle, okay? Because it's an uphill battle. And so she's a unique position. We can't use that as a standard reference because what happens is you fight in City Hall, and that's a difficult task to win in any city, especially one like Nashville. So that's my concern, and I take your point on what happened in that case because I paid close attention to that. But that's not what happens in everyday life for a person of reasonable means. Okay, so that's my concern
Yeah.
in that position.
Yeah.
Couldn't we just have it so they can only be removed for cause and you define cause?
And you have to state cause, and you have to meet one of those causes.
Yeah,
Like you would
otherwise-
in an employment contract.
That's right.
Right?
However we define cause, which, and then otherwise they can't be replaced until
There are
they're at the
standard
end of
ways to
their 6-year
define it.
term or whatever it is.
Yeah.
We'll
And then,
define it more tightly than high crimes and misdemeanors.
I think that's not very well defined. People disagree on what that means.
That's right.
But I think that there's some resources that's available to do that. I think the Business Assistance Office, which is charged with overseeing procurement, could be moved over there to do that, and they can take on additional responsibilities. Because what we need is an independent agency, okay? Nashville budget's $2.5 billion and growing every year, okay? And we should be able to invest at least 2 to 3% of that for staffing, okay, to ensure that we can put some oversight and additional pair of eyes on procurement, on other things that take place within metro government, okay, that does not reflect well from a public perspective.
So as I was thinking about this, and it seems like you all are sort of saying the same thing, as I was thinking about sort of looking back over our notes of the past several meetings and kind of what we're finding, I think, Alex, you made a good point. It's not like there aren't some good aspirations down on paper, and there are good, maybe not. We can still look at what other cities do, and that's on my list. But bringing uniformity and bringing consistency and bringing, I think your word, oversight and transparency. This recommendation, however we formulate it for an inspector general, goes a very long way towards achieving all of those towards covering all of those bases. Because, we can't, I don't know that our resources as a task force, we do surveys, we invite people in, we talk to them, but we're not going to reinvent procurement as a task force, right? I mean, we're not going to be able to do that. And so but we could say, have an office that really is responsible for implementing and monitoring and measuring compliance with the highest aspirations, right? I mean, it seems like that fits pretty nicely with what we've been at. And again, that was part of our initial charge, was to think about, is that appropriate?
Right, and that group will not only procurement, but all the other departments.
Oh, I didn't mean to single it out. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. I don't mean to single it out.
Yeah.
It would be included, so along with everything, with the same aspirations across the board.
That's right.
For everybody. And then the same level of training, hopefully across the board, the same level of awareness of whistleblower opportunities, which exist, but our preliminary information seems to say maybe aren't very well known throughout the government.
Right. So let me kind of give you an example. When I worked at IBM, there's a huge group in human resources, okay? And their charge is to work with the executive of the corporation to make sure that the training on behavior, conflict of interest, and all of those things are clearly understood. So first day when you come in, you went through a training session, either at a department level, or depending on the position you came in, there was training for new hire that lasted a week.
Right.
One day was
Right.
spent on ethics, guidelines, and principles, all right? Made it clear. Every year, there was an update. From your anniversary,
Yeah.
you sent a document. You had to go through that training document. It was like a training session. You had to pass, make 75% on that to make sure that you were aware of it,
Yeah.
because there were changes in the way that the company conducted business. There was other issues and things like that. So, but what happened is all of that was passed down to management at a timely fashion. So whenever the clock struck 12 in human resources, and it says, okay, Department of Public Works has 2 employees that need to go through this training, or they have 2 new employees, it automatically took place. The department head had to make sure it gets done, that the employees did it within a certain time frame. Else it was a mark on the manager, because it was the manager's job to ensure that corporate policy, training, behavior, and equity took place.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the way it was done as
Sure.
a push down. But that's, it was 280, 325 million employees worldwide, so there had to be some consistency in the
Yeah.
way that you
Sure.
make sure that everybody was working on the best interest of the corporation. And I can see all employees of Metro government working on the benefit of the government and the citizens.
Would this IG also have the role of investigating reports that are currently made to directors of departments?
It seems to
taking
me that would be appropriate. I mean, it's open for discussion, but, how we want to recommend this, I mean, it won't be up to us to implement it, but it's up to us to recommend it if we want to. And it does seem to me that, one thing I think we have heard is that enforcement may vary department by department. I think we've heard, did you all agree with that? It seems to me we've heard that from the various sources of information we've gotten. And so it seems to me that it probably makes sense to centralize that so that it doesn't vary as much and you get more consistent treatment.
I'm not sure that we want to turn the IG, we want to take from responsibilities of existing department heads and shift those to the IG. So it seems to me the public's going to be benefit if they have more than one avenue to express a concern.
Right.
I see,
And
yeah.
they've got the department head,
Right.
but now we're saying you have another avenue.
Okay.
Right.
So
We
that
have the IG.
we don't have to be as rigid.
Either or. So
Yeah.
if someone
Yeah,
fears
yeah.
the retaliation from their department head, they would go to the IG.
But see, it's along the line of what you're saying, though, is that when we're talking about training and awareness,
Right.
it would be appropriate, I think, to consider recommending that every board, commission, or agency have an annual training in ethics and conflict of interest.
Yes.
Right.
We're not going to spell out what all that has to entail or how long it is.
No,
But
it's-
and in addition to that, though, that every board, commission, and agency needs to certify, whether it's to the IG or whoever it is, on an annual basis, that training was completed and what it was.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
correct.
Yes.
And I think the
That's
whistleblower,
good.
if we do the education like we have, the fact that we have a whistleblower hotline, people will be more aware to use that.
That's correct.
That could flow directly into the IG for review, and assessment that way. So I think that the training and education part, focusing awareness so employees say, when I see something and I don't think it's correct, I have a way to funnel it in, and then it can be reviewed properly. And then by having that office to look across all the board to make sure there's consistency, like your comparison from department to department to see how they're doing as far as certain aspects of government, right? That, to me, is something I think would be beneficial.
Oh, no, absolutely. And part of this annual report to the IG, the department head or the agency head or the board chair would say, here's where our training was, here's what it entailed, here's the number of people that were trained. In addition to that, here's the number of complaints of various varieties we received, and the state of our consideration of those, resolved, unresolved, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
All that goes to the IG. The IG would have the responsibility to compile that information make a public report.
Make it available, that was part of it in my mind too, make it available to the public
Yeah.
annually, if, you
Yeah.
know, yeah.
Yeah,
So that folks know what kinds of training and
Right.
is going on. And,
Well,
you know.
and I agree. To me, I think it's always difficult when people don't know what their role encompasses.
Yeah,
And, you know, we heard last week that the compliance officer before initiate training for all those people that had signature authority, right? Maybe that could have prevented what happened with Public Works, knowing that you shouldn't be sitting over in a booth,
A box, yeah, yeah.
right? When you're a governmental employee. I mean, you know, I used to, when I worked in the corporate world, when we did government, we had a limit. If we could only take a state or federal employee to lunch twice a year, maximum expenditure was $25. Okay, that was it. And you take somebody 3 times a lunch and you report it on your expense, you're gonna hear from somebody in your procurement. I mean, in your HR.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that those are the things that they have to know.
yeah. Well, one of the places where we are now is whether, I mean, we're going to get more survey information, but, so, and I think we have a consensus about maybe where we are going
Right.
as a task force, kind of the most substantial recommendation
Right.
being the establishment of this office as a recommendation. And a question I've got for consideration by the group is, what else do we need at this point? You know, we've heard from a number of different departments. We will have heard our survey. That's information from all the departments. And do we need more information? Do we need to schedule some more meetings? You know, obviously, we hoped, our goal was to try to have a roughly 90-day time frame, which we are at right now.
Right.
We are there right today. And, you know, I think it may take a little bit longer, to put our report together may take a little bit longer, but, you know, do we want to make a report now with that being the centerpiece of what we're recommending? Obviously, there are components to it. Bill, as you said, specific recommendations about training and that kind of thing. But are we ready to sort of start drafting that report towards that end? Or do members of the task force feel like we need to hear from some more sources first?
I don't think we need to hear.
I'm not sure we do. I just wanted
I
to.
have one question for
Yeah.
the procurement people, but they can.
We can submit
ask them
that
and give them
as
an
we're
answer.
as we're drafting. We can work on that. Yeah.
And just so we're on the record on what that question is,
Yeah.
that one of the areas where problems can arise is in the preparation of specifications for bids or for requests for proposals. And it was not clear to me from the materials we had how much the department involves potential vendors in developing specs.
It's a good question,
I thought
right?
we covered that, though.
I think it was-
Wasn't there a period where they can't
Well, that's after
speak to
the
them?
fact.
It was
We
discussed,
talking-
but I'm not sure I know the
That-
specific
I think
answer.
my sense from the notes I had was that that's after the fact,
Right.
once the procurement is
Got it.
started.
Right.
Not in the formulation of the request or the specs.
That's right. So I would
Yeah.
just be interested in knowing how members of the public, potential vendors, can interface with departments before a potential bid or RFP gets on the street in terms of what the specs are.
Yeah.
Well, that's a difficult task. Take it from somebody that worked for IBM for 21 years that had state and federal government. Our salespeople are always selling, okay, and it becomes really your preference. Okay, it's a problem to be solved. It becomes a preference. Do I want IBM? Do I want Dell? Do I want Microsoft? Do I want who it is? Right? And what has to happen in the procurement standpoint, it has to be non-specific, non-vendor specific. And what you'll find in looking through many documents like that, and I've read a many document, there are features that are identified clearly as have to be performed by one and only one vendor.
That was the point of his question.
That's the point I'm making.
And I'm gonna tell you, it's a difficult task.
I know.
Okay, and I tell you what, having won some because they wanted IBM, but I lost a whole lot because they wanted somebody else.
Yeah.
Okay, and we were excluded because when you start rolling out those unique features, okay, you need to have justification. Well, if it's earth-shattering technology breakthrough, then you should be able to state your rationale for it. But what you never see is anyone providing that kind of clear, concise statement. It becomes a preference, and a lot of times they were whining and dining outside of the rules of engagement with a state or federal or governmental official. Okay, I mean, I know I did it. I worked state and federal government for 8 years.
And I spent years trying to catch you.
You know, I'm telling you. So I think we on the same way.
Well, and I'm on the fence with that because I've come from the private sector, right? And so I spent 20 years both procuring and also responding to procurement requests to do sales. And I've worked in very specialized industries, and people don't know what they don't know. And do we feel like the people that are compiling these requirements for an RFP have the extensive expertise to be able to ask all the questions, and in many cases they probably do. But to preclude people from having a conversation with a vendor to say, we're looking to issue an RFP for insert X product, I haven't done this for 5 years, I'm not familiar with the technology. Are there provisions that we need to make sure we ask for that are, standards now that I'm not familiar with? Because I've got vendor A telling me, the red one is always the one you want to choose, but vendor B told me that unless it's raining that day, it doesn't work. Well, I didn't know that. So, somehow I think there needs to be knowledge sharing without excluding them from being able to.
By asking the question, I wasn't saying we exclude anyone. I'm just saying the question is to what extent are folks involved?
Yeah.
And I think the point where we get to is that educating procurement officers can, when it's being done appropriately, get a more responsive, appropriate bid.
Right.
Correct.
It's when the corner gets turned and they say, we really need this part to be 3/8 of an inch instead of, 5/16.
Yeah.
Just because someone
And it
told
just
them.
happens that one vendor
that's
has got that again, I think a general recommendation would be that part of the effort in this process needs to make sure that you educate yourself about the products you're procuring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you inject unique features in there, it's important to have an appropriate justification for that.
Yeah.
We're going out buying cars back in the 1970s. The state buys a lot of cars. And there was a little company in Smyrna that just landed named Nissan.
It was landing at that point.
And we wanted to say, we'll buy Datsuns or Nissans. That's perfectly fine. We don't care. The word came down, though, that we're not buying Japanese cars. And, so that was that's one of those decisions got made. But again, that burden was not put on the procurement people to write a spec that would prevent Nissan from complying. It was at the General Assembly.
Yeah.
Just basically said, as a matter of state policy, we're not buying Japanese cars. We're not buying Honda motorcycles. Of course, thank heavens, all that's now no longer the case.
All changed.
But the responsibility for those kind of decisions needs to rest with the political officers. The procurement people need to just call the balls and the strikes and not be put in a situation where they have to insert something in a contract that disqualifies everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what happens.
For the
is-
gain of someone
Yeah.
else, you're
What,
saying.
what happens is, here's what happened in state and local government. Okay, they set standards, right? So, state of Tennessee decides that Dell is gonna be their computer vendor. They got a statewide contract with Dell. Well, Dell is the guy for 5 years. Now, at the end of 5 years, the question comes in is everybody else in the game? Well, you know, they can turn around and says, okay, how many people have experience working with somebody the size of our government and have resources already in town? Well, I mean, if you already had Dell, right, you got resources in town, who else can come kind of play that game, right? That's how the game is played. Okay, I know. Okay, so what I say is that every time a new contract, and I don't know how the IG can do this, they can overlook it and see this, but what happens is at the end of a contract, and what you'll find in a lot of governments is that that preferred vendor gets another one for another 5 years, another one for another 5 years, okay? For some reason that is only beneficial to that vendor. The other thing that happens is that when you have reference contracts, okay? You get a reference contract, somebody else wants to buy off of it, they can buy off of it. Well, here's the issue. The issue is that technology is a competitive environment. If you want to deal here 2 years later and I want to use a reference contract, hell, that may not be to your advantage. But this person with a reference contract get benefit of the doubt. So they get a contract from another government, no bid.
Yeah, but see, that's a procurement policy.
But that's a wrong policy.
Well, I didn't say it was right or wrong. I'm just saying that that's not.
I know we can't address it, but what I'm saying,
No,
that IG can put some insight on it if we make that awareness, okay?
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, it, as we said earlier, procurement is one facet of, but it's an important facet. But I'm not meaning to minimize it. But the recommendation here is going to be to address all departments. I think is
But
the way we're.
What happens is when you're the spending arm of a government, right, and you spend 1.1 to 1.4 billion dollars every year out of your $2.4 billion budget, you the game in town. You the big game in town.
Right.
Okay.
Right, of course.
So
Of course.
that's why I'm bringing it up.
No, I'm glad you are.
You're the big game in town. Other departments spend a little portion of that, their share of that, right? But the big game in town is whoever got the big bucks. Okay.
And I guess there's a difference between continuing a contract because you're comfortable with a vendor, and it's basically laziness, right? Like you just don't want to switch because there's a pain point to switching.
Practicalities, as I heard the
But it's
presentation we had 2
not
weeks
corruption
ago.
necessarily,
No,
is
it's
what I'm
not.
saying.
It's
So,
not.
I mean, I think the IG is supposed to be addressing corruption, not merely laziness or, sort of, I mean, that seems to me
I
like
think
an audit
fixing
function.
that is going to, I say fixing, addressing it is going to be getting a good person in that new office
Right.
with appropriate judgment to.
But see,
Evaluate
laziness and disorder is the prime ground for corruption.
Yeah.
Okay, let's be
And-
clear.
and-
I mean, let's be clear.
and-
Laziness and corruption is the prime building ground for corruption because there's no recourse. People can be lazy and it's just considered lazy.
I think it's a little different.
Well, I mean,
Well, you may make that decision in the best interest of all parties involved. In the example you gave with Dell and someone else, if there's, an implementation cost that is, a roadblock for us to go with a cheaper vendor, net all in to stay with Dell, and I know we're not picking on Dell, so I'm going to say that.
Yeah.
We love Dell. For having, a vendor that's in place existing, and if you might save, $50,000 in a year by implementing a new one, but the implementation costs Metro $1 million, you're going to stay with the existing vendor because you just saved us $950,000, right?
In that example.
In that example,
What
so-
our recommendation would do, though, I think, would be that the light could be shown on this.
That's what I think is
And
that
then
we're all in
others
agreement
who
about
are in a
that.
position
Right.
We're all in
to
agreement about that.
re-examine and change
That's
the
it.
procurement policy
Right.
can do it. It's not like we're going to invest in the Inspector General or the ethics function some sort of obligation to improve procurement policies.
Right.
Right.
It's just it'll point something out.
It will be on the
And
list.
then there'll be some pressure to
And to just
address
play
it.
this scenario out, then that is done how? Through this additional option of being a whistleblower. So if there is someone that feels like
Yes,
they were wrong
yes.
I mean, here's the
in this policy,
There's a new
they can
avenue for them to
raise
get
their
that issue
concern with
brought to
someone.
light.
Right. Well, I mean, vendors can challenge it. I mean, vendors
Yeah.
can challenge
Yeah.
that themselves, right? And but what
Without
happened
going through a
is,
lawsuit.
but the the reference contracts are hard to challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, because it never hits the street.
And I think,
the
Alex,
next thing is adopted. So
you made a great point that several meetings ago that I took to heart, which is there may be legal avenues to address inequity, but a lot of folks, or unjust practices, but a lot of folks aren't going to go to the trouble of hiring a lawyer and taking it all the way through
That's right.
an appeals process and then litigation. And so having an internal mechanism within the government
Yeah.
that
That's the
doesn't
only way.
cost that person, $50,000 to
Right.
make that inquiry.
That's right.
Is going to be a beneficial thing.
And in fact-
I thought that was a great point.
and the fact that they can work on behalf of everybody, because if I'm paying $10 million more for product and services than I should be, that affects everybody. Okay, not just Metro government, but it pays all the taxpayers. And so by having a means for that person to say, hey, I don't agree with that sole source thing, right?
Right.
All right.
Right.
Now I can go to a whistleblower and now I can have that reviewed, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I don't believe it's because technology changes every 2 or 3 years. I don't believe the 2-year-old technology may be better than 1-year-old technology, okay? From a cost benefit standpoint. Those are the things that in this procurement game, those are the unique things that make a major difference in the outcome of expenditures. Okay? Because what happens, most of the time you get locked in the old price, and what happens, people always adjust their competitive nature. So if I lost a bid to, let's say, HP in 2019, right, for, let's say, smart, intelligent copiers, what do you call multifunction, big multifunction copiers, right? I already got a stake in the ground. So when the next bid comes in, I'm gonna sweeten the pie. But if HP comes back and get the bid with 2-year-old technology at a no bid because of reference contract, they won the game. Because they haven't achieved a competitive price point for the next generation of technology.
What I hear you saying, though, is we're wanting this IG to usurp the function of the bid protest process, which is already established by law. I mean,
We said
Not
to
necessarily.
review. We want them to review based on whistleblower complaints.
It wouldn't be.
yeah, but
it
if a
wouldn't be
vendor is
adjudicating.
aggrieved by not receiving a bid, the vendor is supposed to go through a bid protest process. But if the vendor says, well, never mind, I'm not going to go through that process because it's expensive, I'm going to instead call myself a whistleblower and go through the IG and get it for free.
No, what I'm saying is when a vendor doesn't know about a bid, okay, we have $1 million bids of reference contracts, okay, that gets repeated over and over again. They don't know about it. That's what I'm talking about. If it's a competitive situation, that they can handle that themselves. But what we're talking about is when you have cooperative agreement and reference contract that you can use to continue to keep a company in power. That's is on the edge.
Maybe I'll try this out and see if this is
Okay.
where we're headed, maybe. It seems to me when if we recommend creating this office, we're not rewriting procurement law.
Right.
That's not what we're doing. In fact, I don't think we have time or resources or expertise to rewrite procurement law. That's not what we're attempting to do. We're simply attempting to create an office that would not just focus on procurement, because I think we've spent a lot of time on procurement, but that is one where this office could be sure if it were necessary, somebody could complain and say, we don't think they are following proper practices, not in an individual vendor grievance, but in general. And bringing all metro departments into compliance with proper ethical standards is the goal, right? I think that, I don't know if I've said that too simply, but.
What I just wrote down was that our intent is not to supplant existing remedies, but to supplement them.
I think that's what I'm sort of saying.
And so one of the things would be that, the Inspector General, and again, they'll work out the details of this, but if the Inspector General gets a, quote, whistleblower complaint that is really more properly treated as a protest, then the Inspector General should have the prerogative of saying, your complaint needs to get considered, but I'm sending it.
Does that answer your question, Mark? I feel like that answers my question, too.
Yeah.
That's how I was envisioning it, not as a replacement for any existing process.
Right.
Yeah, because those laws are based on a lot of things, including state law, that we can't change.
Right.
And also best practice. I mean, the procurement folks told us there's that, I have it in my office, but the national standards, yes,
Well, and
for.
actually, there were several more suggestions I had written down, which
That'd be great.
whenever it's time to talk about it.
It's time.
Well, one of my recommendations was
Because
that
I think we're going to head towards a report of some kind here, so.
our existing ordinances and statutes really are a little bit internally inconsistent. I mean, the definition of who's covered, who's not covered.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I had written down for us to consider would be for drafting clearer standards of best practices or ethical practices. And I think one of the best lay statements of the things we're talking about was in this NGIP Public Procurement Guide, where they defined what they called a few categories of ethical situations.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think it would just be beneficial for everyone to sit down, if we're going to do this training and we're going to explain the circumstances, to have a much clearer set of explanations on the kind of circumstance that ought to raise the red flag.
Now, that's a recommendation then to perhaps change or clarify existing metro ordinances. Is that?
Ordinances or policies,
Or
wherever
policy.
they happen to
It could be,
appear.
it's actually a combination.
That's right.
Right, of state
That's right.
statutes, which we can't do anything about.
That's right.
Metro ordinances and executive orders.
That's right.
So that's bringing greater
Relating to
uniformity
coverage,
to that.
who's covered,
Yeah,
Right.
because we've got this
That's a
circumstance where the ordinance appears to cover everybody, but it's only being applied to some people.
right.
Right.
But then defining more clearly the sort of conduct we're talking about that people need to be concerned about. So that was one that.
That's very helpful.
Back on whistleblowers.
Yeah,
We talked about this before, or mentioned it before, but never came to a conclusion. We need to make sure that we're recommending that there are protections for whistleblowers if they are employees. Members of the public, are going to be relatively safe,
Right.
quote
Yeah,
unquote.
yeah.
But if they're employees, there needs to be protections, whether it's anonymity or a specific requirement about no retaliatory
Non-retaliation,
personnel action on them. And one thing, I know we do this in most law schools do this in their honor codes. But one of the ways you shield a whistleblower is to create a requirement that they must report inappropriate behavior. Because then when the employee, if the employee has a duty to report behavior and that employee does it, if people are trying to climb on that employee's back for doing it, it's part of the rules. We're expected to report inappropriate behavior. So it's just a consideration that part of the whistleblower protection would be an obligation for employees, managers, public, board and commission members to report behavior that they, and then we define it legally in the correct way where we have good reason to believe that
Yeah.
an inappropriate act
Of
is.
course, a similar thing exists for lawyers when the rules of professional responsibility.
It's the same thing, that's
It's,
right.
right, where it would say, if you become aware of another lawyer
Right.
doing something inappropriate. and
We
you have-
must report it.
We must report it, so, yeah.
So I think
It's certainly part of that.
That might protect employees. Some, then the last thing about whistleblowers would be, and I know it's more controversial than some of this other stuff, do we want to provide any sort of compensation
Financial
mechanism?
compensation.
Well, what is the policy now? I thought that they were already shielded from retaliation, but I'm not sure that they have a duty to report.
I think
Well,
that's right.
And I'm not sure the shield is that strong. or that
And I do
clear.
think, I took away that there is not currently a financial
And see,
component.
and the other part I was thinking is, and this would not apply, I mean, dollar limits, can be set on defining when would this kick in.
Right.
But there may be some large practices that are affecting significant amounts of money
Right.
that the stakes are going to be so high that folks are just simply not going to want to get into it. And, it's kind of like you can, call the police and get a reward if they capture a criminal. Well, just having some inducement like that for a certain defined set of circumstances where there's no use giving everybody, oh, we'll give you $1 for reporting this or $5 for reporting that. But if it's a significant matter, and it may be a linked to a dollar sign or whatever it is, that they are
There's an incentive for
going to
doing
be
it.
considered, there'd be a financial incentive.
Yeah.
I would completely disagree with that idea. I think we shouldn't have to incentivize people monetarily to do their job, and if their job is to report corruption when they see it, I don't see any reason to do that. I also think you would put the IG in a really difficult position because so many of these issues are going to be gray. They're going to be like, well, she reported something and there was something wrong-ish, and we're going to fix that by talking to the director, but it was, I just think there's a lot of situations where there's not going to be a very clear answer, and I would hate to put some person in the position of having to say, okay, you get the money or you don't.
Well, what about
It could be a
situations?
bit of a two-edged thing. Somebody might be motivated.
Oh, you're right. I just said we just needed to talk about it.
So the notion might be to at least, that's something to think about, but it's not, that's going to take
We may,
council action anyway,
We may
isn't
end
it?
up just saying is that we would recommend it be considered, not that it be
considered,
adopted.
perhaps in certain circumstances,
What
It's
about when it's
complicated.
not in the
I think
gray
you make
area, right? I think that most cases may fall in the gray area, but there are situations where millions of dollars could be on the line with regards to unethical behavior, okay? So someone reports that and able to save the metro government $10 or $15 million, it's almost like a suggestion that causes productivity gain, right?
Yeah, but I completely agree that you shouldn't have to give financial incentives for people to do the right thing. And I think that's a very telling argument and reason not to do it. At the same time, it's one of these things where the fact that it exists is the potential exists is going to have a salutary effect on the people involved, perhaps.
So
That if they know that if they have a little conspiracy to inappropriately use resources of the city, that some member of their little conspiracy may at some point say, there's money in this for me, I think I'll blow the whistle, and that might stop them.
Right.
Well,
No.
that would be one of those gray areas where the person has participated up to a point, and then you don't want to reward them for having,
I agree with you. That's why I'm saying we're just talking about it. What we've seen in some quarters is that it has produced some good results. We've also had.
Some whistleblower statutes do provide it, I think is the reality, right? I think it
False Claims
exists.
Act.
It exists for certain types of cases that can be brought.
Well, we've
know.
litigated some cases over compensation circumstances like
Yeah.
that, and they are messy. They
Yeah,
are
yeah,
absolutely messy.
But what we are saying, perhaps as part of our report, will be to examine the whistleblower protocols, and we certainly know they're not well enough known, right? At a minimum, we know.
Right.
At a minimum, we know that from what we're already getting. We know that.
Yeah.
And we're going to be saying that the whistleblower can blow the whistle using existing remedies, or if the city creates an IG,
Yes,
they can go to the IG.
I think that's what we're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're saying.
I've got a question. Did the independent agencies like the Airport Authority and things like that have any sort of IG function within them? Because I know they sort of fell outside of all of this.
Not that I'm aware of.
Nikki, do you know whether the independent agencies have something like that?
I don't know.
I don't either. Something we could, I don't think we've heard anything so far about that.
Well, maybe from a federal standpoint, I mean, when you get federal dollars, there's oversight there. But I'm not sure when it comes to when you're using, normal local or tax revenue dollars. I know that federal oversight
Yeah.
has some key
There are,
requirements, but
but Martha's question was like, let's take the Airport Authority as an example. Would they internally, is this your question? Would they internally have a mechanism of their own that which I don't think we're necessarily saying you can't have, right? I mean, that's
Right,
not,
right.
We're not micromanaging that.
We're not trying to remove any
No,
authority.
we're not trying to
Yeah.
limit, we're actually trying to raise
aware.
awareness and raise ethical standards across the board.
Yeah, I
That's
think we would
our
want
goal.
the IG to have the ability to investigate even the independent
Yes.
agencies like Metro Schools, like the Metro
that's-
Airport
I
Authority.
think that's a very good point.
I think that's a great, I think that's another point I should put in my notes.
Can we do that? I mean, I thought that was outside.
I mean, we can recommend it, they don't have to.
Oh, okay. I mean, especially when we give funding, I think we ought to reserve the right to audit.
Well, we're just saying the IG has the
Right.
authority to.
Well, we know, for example, that in procurement, just in the attachments that were given to us, the charter has things to say about
Right.
procurement and certain things like Metro Schools, Airport Authority, WEGO, Hospital Authority, and so forth, aren't covered by the same procedures.
That's right.
No,
know.
it's not clear to me that the council, if another ordinance was passed creating an IG, couldn't give. It would
Couldn't
be
give that
inconsistent
authority.
with the charter to give the IG that authority.
I'm not sure whether it could or not, but you have to consider whether the charter would restrict
That's right.
anything we're talking about doing,
That's
which, I don't know that changes our role as citizens to say what we think is good. I mean, there could be a charter amendment if necessary. I mean, that could go to the Charter Commission,
Right.
the Charter Review Commission,
Right.
right? I mean, I think it's our job to think of how do we sort of lift up best practices.
Well, I agree with you. I think that if Metro government is funding any, pseudo-governmental agency of
Yes.
Metro,
Yes.
right, they ought to have insight into how they spend and not turn it over to the boards that reside over particular agencies. I mean, to me, when you start looking at Metro Housing Authority.
Yeah, that's one of
TIF,
them. That's
right,
one of
and then
them.
you start looking at
NES is one of them.
NES, and you're looking at Metro Nashville Public Schools. I mean, I think that we ought to have some oversight, especially from an physical audit standpoint, from a use of dollars standpoint. So,
Actually, there's
One last recommendation.
recommendation I
Yeah.
had, and that is though that, and this would include the 6 or 7 independent agencies, but
Yeah.
I suggest that we might want to consider recommending that the council and these independent agencies consider adopting similar policies and practices to those we're recommending.
right.
We're not telling them how to do it, we're just saying that it's essentially what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Right.
I think that's a very very good thing.
Because
to include in our report.
I do think
I'll tell you, you can
that
really
more
work with
members of the
that.
council
That
need to
seems-
have training in this NIGC document.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think here's my comment on the council. I think the council gets overwhelmed on a regular basis. And is not equipped to respond in some of the time limits that have been set upon them to do their job. And I think that they should, as a body, push back and quit kowtowing to these deadlines that pop up when they're not providing and furnishing information as requested in the time frame. I mean, you cannot expect a council, okay, to continue to hopefully do the job for the residents that elected them when they're not equipped to analyze the data or get, I guess, lobbied by a strong mayor to do their bidding. So I think that they need to have much more ability to push back and ask for information in a timely fashion and get all of their answers addressed before they have to decide on make a decision. I mean, I just think that they're too overwhelming. There's 40, they all have work jobs. They don't have any real working staff that I know of to help them analyze the financial aspect of it, the legal aspect of what's going on in the city. So, you know, if we're going to be talking about improvement, we need to have some kind of improvement in the council to support them doing their job as oversight and decision makers for the people of Davidson County.
And I don't disagree with that at all. But at the same time, what we're finding here is the broad subject of training and awareness. I agree. That I think it would be very helpful for the council on its own to have similar training and awareness. And it would, I think, be very helpful for the council members to have a session the same way we require the legislators to have a session on sexual harassment in the workplace or whatever it is. So it'd be nice for them to say, let's annually revisit the question of ethical practices in state government.
And whistleblower policy, because all that can do is strengthen the overall function of creating a transparent
That's
government.
right. But we're just recommending they do that. We're not telling them they have to. We're just recommending they do
Yeah,
it.
so it's just a set of recommendations. Yeah. Those are all, thank you, Bill. Have you got more?
No, that's
Those
it.
are all good. Those are all good.
Yeah, I agree with those.
Those are all
100%.
good. I will try to, let me pause and see, do other folks have things we might want to additionally include? We haven't drafted yet, but I was going to maybe suggest a time frame and a way to maybe get something out.
I have various notes through the course of this of
That's
things
good.
that I would
You might want to
make
add.
sure that they're either
That they're-
not-
I do too.
that they're included
I do
or
too. Yeah,
addressed,
yeah.
but, without going through this folder right now.
Right. One thing that I'll throw out, I mean, this is our last scheduled meeting. We can schedule some more another meeting at least, or maybe more than one other meeting. And I thought perhaps at our next meeting, since we feel like there's been a lot of consensus today about where we are headed, perhaps I could sketch out an outline of what our report would contain for us to really flesh out at another meeting so that our deliberations are thoughtful. But would that be helpful for everybody if I volunteered to do that?
Yeah, that would be tremendously helpful. But I think what happens is we probably got another, week or two on getting the full.
We do have a little bit of time before we don't have our full survey,
But
right?
I think if you outline it.
I'll try.
And with thought of mind to allow this to provide some credible evidence.
This is part of our.
Right.
Absolutely. This is part of what informs our recommendations. What we've heard from and then the information we've gathered is part of what informs our recommendations. And, I'm certainly, and it'll be an outline so that we can then that I think will create the template for writing a report that would be meaningful. This is a new thing. Inspector General is a new thing, right? I mean, it's not something Metro's ever done before. So, would it make, our charge was to come up with recommendations and to do it in a certain time frame, but since this is new, I mean, would it make sense for us to, I don't know whether we'd be asked to do this or not, but to see if that gets implemented, and then we could reconsider it a year from now or something. I don't know whether that's necessary or.
I think we could certainly inform the mayor in the report that we would certainly be available to
I think we could say that,
reconvene a year from
Yeah.
now or whatever.
It seems to
those
me
two
that would be
gauge.
a helpful to help react to
Offer.
what's been, we could offer.
Yeah.
We could offer.
Well, and I think that's a good idea.
I'm just,
because
throwing that out.
What typically happens is we create a report and we make recommendations, suggestions, and they go into
Right.
Never Never Land.
Well,
right? And then
We've all seen that, right?
and well, I mean,
That's true.
I mean, we can name legislation and stuff that happens all the time that goes in Never Never Land.
Mm-hmm.
But being able to reconvene this board to come back to see if progress is being made,
Mm-hmm.
okay, at some time in the future, is what I think is follow-up.
Yeah.
And it's from the same people that had a chance to digest all the other information, make recommendations, to come back instead of forming a new crew.
I think if we if part of our report included our willingness to do that,
Right.
seems like that would be appropriate follow-up
Right.
and good, good stewardship of what we've tried to put together so far. And
So, Bill, I would propose we do 2 more on the same cycle meetings.
yeah, that's good. That's a good suggestion.
Maybe one that we
2
can-
weeks from now, and then another 2
We'll
weeks
have,
from now.
Yeah, survey data
Yeah.
for the 2 weeks from now, the draft.
Let's look at the calendar. Let's look at the calendar and see if that works. We've been meeting on Tuesdays at 3,
Right.
so 2 weeks from today would be the 18th, right?
Yeah.
And my goal would be to have an outline for us to consider at that meeting. That would be February the 18th. And Audra, I think these could be noticed and advertised as upcoming meetings. So February the 18th, and then 2 weeks from that would be
It's Election Day, March the 3rd.
March the 3rd. Is that election day?
Could we can move it back to the 10th?
We could.
Let me get to what was the first date?
February 18,
And then they give us 3 weeks to kind of.
and then March the 10th. Yeah, then we'd all have the outline.
Right.
We'd all sort of see where the report is going.
Right.
February 18th is going to be hard for me.
Is it hard? Well, then let's change it. We're not wedded to February the 18th. We're setting a new calendar.
February 17th.
17th is a Monday, and I cannot do Mondays.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Dean Koch and I both teach on Mondays.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Could it be another date that week, or would you rather push it to the 25th?
I'm perfectly clear on the 20th, on the
Okay.
Thursday.
Thursday the 20th. Is that good for folks?
Right now, I don't have anything scheduled. I've just got some personal issues
Yeah.
with that when I can't plan in advance. But
Well,
I
no,
mean,
we're
we
trying
can
to
do
get
as
plenty
long
of-
as-
yeah.
If you, right now,
I would have
I
to
can
leave
probably
at
work
4.
around.
Is what?
I'd have to leave at 4 that day, on the 20th of February.
Okay, yeah, we're already well past that for today. It's hard to do it in just an hour.
Yeah.
So what if we pushed it
I
to
can do
the,
it the 21st.
I cannot do it the 21st.
Or-
I'm sorry, I cannot do it the
I said, why don't
21st.
can we just do it on the 25th?
I can do the 25th.
Can we just do it the 25th and then?
We could, that gives me another week, that gives me a week to
3 weeks.
prepare the
Yeah, I can do
outline.
it the 25th.
I'm delighted to have an extra week for the outline.
And then we can fall back on the 10th,
February 25th for a meeting at 3 o'clock?
right?
Yeah.
And then we can go to March the 10th,
Let me look.
or either the 17th, either one.
I can do March the 10th.
Let me get to March the 10th. That's April. March the 10th. I can do March the 10th.
Is that correct, Martha? How about you? Is that okay? Ron,
That works for me.
that works?
Okay.
All right, well, so the ball will be in my court for our next meeting. If you all, have thoughts that you want to get to me prior to that, that's,
But
I'm open.
I think you
Audra?
know-
25th, March 10th.
Yeah, the February 25th at 3 o'clock here, and March 10th at 3 o'clock here.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
Those will be the only two that we schedule at this point, I think.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we can maybe wrap up our our chapter at this point, you know.
And I would think that after
that.
the meeting on the 20th, if there's, or 25th,
25th.
if there's a draft that we're working on,
Yeah,
we can do that remotely.
Yeah,
Right.
my thought was to I'm not wedded to this method, but I thought an outline that maybe had some subparts that would folks can add and be sure that I'm not leaving anything out, and then that gives us the bones of what our report will look like.
Well, I think our report should be as bullet pointy as possible.
As short, you know,
rather
I don't know that we
than
need to
a whole
write
bunch
an
of text.
essay on the
Yeah.
existing state of the law.
Yeah.
I
That would
looked at
be
the immigration one,
right.
and it's 44 pages, but it's basically 3 pages of the actual report and then all of the survey.
I'm with you. I mean, a short report is more
Yeah.
meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
three-
harder to write a short report than it is to write a long report.
Well, I think
Sometimes. so.
three to 5 pages should be good enough with a
I hope so.
additional attachments. If they want to review the information, we should be able to summarize it and put it in form. And based on our overview, is
Yeah.
that, hey, you know, there may be existing documentation in place, but the level of understanding, I think, it is.
I think this is good, and this gives us a way to get this done. Is there any other things we need to discuss
A
today,
technical
Ron?
question on it. So
Yes.
how does this play out with the final report? Are we providing copy and it's put on Metro letterhead and in Metro formatting, or are we formatting this document? How does that all work?
I think it should come out of my office.
Okay. So you want us just to do copy?
We'll do
And then
a Word document.
It will be a recommendation from you all to the mayor.
Right.
And
Right.
that's on, how is it?
It's
That's not
on-
on mayor's letterhead?
It was, the
Well,
direction is,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it'll be a letter to him.
we can do that. Yeah.
This is
You as a
the,
mayoral
We're acting as a task force.
That's what I was thinking.
Right.
We're asking as a task force established by the mayor exactly what that looks
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
Right.
That's, I think you sent me that template, and I used it to create that, and we'll do the same methodology.
And while you were talking, I was Googling the whistleblower things
Yes.
from other cities. I only found one Judge Coke that offered compensation. It was Los Angeles. Most did not. San Francisco's model is superb. I've already sent it to her.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary.
I was working
Thank
on
you.
this stuff when I was talking.
And part of what I like about now where we're headed now is that this new office, if that happens, if that recommendation is adopted, that office can really start pulling best practices and it'll evolve. So it'll have an ongoing life.
In that particular.
It won't just be a report that sits there.
In that
you know.
particular recommendation, it may be helpful for us to at least provide our thought on scope of the duties.
Yeah, we need to
that office
include
has, 'cause
that. We need to
You could
include
set up an
that.
inspector general in name only, and you don't.
Yeah, it needs to, let me put that in my
Well, we want
notes.
to make sure this person isn't the person people go to when they have a sexual harassment complaint, because
No,
that's
it's not going to be
HR.
that.
And we don't want a vendor to be able to use it to circumvent the
Existing
bid
policy.
protest
Right.
process.
And I think
So-
what Bill said about it's not there to replace existing. It's not, what's your word, supplanting existing. There was a good word you used.
Well, it was in 10th grade. We'll get an
You
eighth
used a
grade.
good
We'll get an eighth
word.
grade.
You used a good word.
We'll get it.
We'll get it there. Anything else you all we need to do today, or anything else from the mayor's office, or? I think we're adjourning more or less on time today, Dan.
More or less.
Yeah, thank you all. We're adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.